had that on my mind too. I wrote it down because I don't want people to put you or even myself in that category of, well, I did this and it didn't work. You know, it's kind of like doing martial arts and you're like, I did the move and he stopped me, you know, and I got punched in the mouth. So they don't see like the hours of repetitions, like you mentioned in your training, that, hey, this skill comes from doing all the boring stuff, like when everyone else is at home watching Netflix. Like I was literally at home just grinding, like to the point of just like, I don't even want to touch a computer, you know, and then an hour later I'd be on YouTube. But yeah, there's a lot of groundwork, but I want to emphasize too that having this, you know, I felt, again, it just goes back to personal choices that I felt like I never wanted to get fraud checked or have somebody ask me like, oh, why'd that guy get hired? I'm like, well, I have a secret clearance, I got a degree, I got 2 of them, I did all this foundational stuff, and I also did this. Versus like, I just did this one thing. I'm just praying for this Hail Mary. Not to say it's not a really good thing to have on your portfolio, but there is stuff that you have to do. I guess it's kind of like putting on a play or something. Like you got to do all the lighting, you got to do the screenplay, you got to make sure that like the venue's legit. Because you never want to get asked something basic and then like you don't know. It's just like, oh, I guess that rules this candidate out of the pool, you know, so.
Today's interview is with a prior service member. His name is Juan, and he decided he wanted to get into cybersecurity and did exactly that. He's really good at studying, has really good execution and work ethic, and he'd be a good person to kind of copy and emulate. And he's like really similar to me in the sense that he did a whole bunch of studying and like a lot of certification in the beginning to kind of build that foundation. Because I'm kind of like worried about, you know, my employability. So I kind of did like extra to make sure I'm like really employable. And he kind of did the same thing. And it's going to be a really good interview to listen to. And I think it will help a lot of people. So yeah, check it out. Hey everybody, Josh Madakor here. I'm a cybersecurity YouTuber and owner of the Cyber Range. And Juan is a member of the Cyber Range community, and he went through everything and he ended up getting a job. So he kind of agreed to come here and talk to us a bit today about that. So thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. It's been a long time coming, a long time listener and first time caller.
I appreciate that. So like, if you don't mind, do you want to give like maybe a brief introduction of yourself and what you were doing before you got your current job?
I'll try to be brief, but there's kind of a lot of things. So if you have questions you want to go deeper into, feel free. So, sure. I mean, everyone kind of remembers COVID. Seems like it was yesterday, but what I was doing during COVID is I was on military orders and I was working a night shift. So my job was something that allowed me to watch my phone a lot, I guess you could say, because I was in a desolate area. So like many people, I was watching YouTube videos about cybersecurity. And long story short, when I got off that mission, my friend who I met in California, he's one of my really good friends, he was basically thinking the same thing about diving into cybersecurity. And he had just recently separated from the military. So that was basically my green light to get into it by attending a local school out here in St. Louis, Maryville University. I did that for 2 years because I already had a previous bachelor's degree. And at that time, I was also able to get my first help desk role. I was there for a short time, got a bunch of certs. Then I jumped to my next role. And being that I have a secret clearance, I was able to leverage that to get a job at the base that's not too far away from me. That role was kind of like a knock position, which I think you've mentioned in the past that you've had that experience as well, so you're familiar with the DoD space. And it's good in that it'll get you somewhere else, but there's some trappings here and there. But I just knew long term that I wanted to get into cyber. So that brings me to July of last year. I was really studying hard for the CCNA. I had completed modules 1 and 2 at a local community college. And then I don't know like what it was, if it was just a bunch of different factors in my life, but I've been watching your videos for a long time. And you know how like sometimes you get analysis paralysis and you just sit there and like, I wonder how it is, instead of just jumping in.
Yeah.
So I finally had got that feeling where I was like, you know what, I need to see how far I can get, or if I can get into cyber, because I've been thinking about it since 2020 and I'd already got my degree and I wasn't doing anything that was cyber specific, although there was a lot of security aspects involved in at that role that I had. But I just felt like it was just something that was put on me, like you have to go do this. And so I was like, I'm just going to sign up for this course. Because by then I had already done my homework. I seen that people were like, you know, genuine about their experiences, and I had seen all your other free content. And, you know, one thing about myself is that whenever I want to do something I like to seek out the best teachers, people that can break everything down, and people that are still active in the field versus, I did something, 10 years ago. Like, I'm a one timer because at one time I did this
Yeah.
versus somebody who's actively in the field and is able to teach other people stuff. So I was like, well, I'm just going to pull the trigger. I did. I completed the course, the HoneyNet course.
Hmm.
And I kid you not, like that weekend I updated my GitHub. It was like July 20th. I got it written down right here. Um, I went through the whole thing of updating my resume, and then I saw a job posting, and I was like, because up until then I had applied for a lot of different positions, but I didn't have any meat on the bones as far as being able to say, hey, I've worked in this seam, I know how to use these tools. So I was just like the common person on LinkedIn where I would get calls about positions from recruiters that had nothing to do with my skill set, and which, I could get fraud check at any time if I had got that job. So the way you tailor your course had made it like a perfect fit to put onto my resume, to get me in the door. And I was able to leverage all the stuff that I did during that project and talk about everything because I'd done it a few times. I'd messed up a couple of times. And I also spoke about that, but they had enough confidence in me to hire me, and after the interview, they let me know that that was a good fit, and that was August of last year, yeah, and it's just been like not a roller coaster, but more, it's just been like a blur since then. So
Gotcha. Cool. And then you mentioned that do you have two bachelor's degrees, or you have one and then like
yeah,
a
actually, I do. Not to brag, but
yeah.
the cool thing is, so like because I was in the military, I got out in 2022.
Hmm.
I was able to use the tuition assistance to get my first bachelor's degree. So
Hmm.
that's separate from the GI Bill. And I was able to do that because one of my mentors had told me, like, hey, if you want to get promoted, you're going to need a bachelor's degree at some point. So I did that. It was completely unrelated to cyber, but it covered enough of the core stuff that I was
Hmm.
able to focus on mainly cybersecurity when I completed my other degree.
Okay. Your second degree is a cyber degree?
Yeah, cybersecurity. Yep.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay. And then you said you got like a bunch of certs also. Do you mind talking
Oh,
about which
I
certs
was,
you ended up doing?
man, I was busy. So obviously, when you go down the YouTube rabbit hole, you get like spammed with, "Hey, you need to get this." I'm just like, I think now it's a lot worse.
Hmm.
Obviously, if people are trying to make a living or create content, which no harm in that. But I also knew that like, well, no matter what you do, you need to start at the beginning. And again, going back to the possibility of getting fraud checked, um, my first role was as a help desk guy. So I was like, I need to get A+ first because I'm not above learning the internal components of a computer or how an operating system works, and or even the voltage of this wire that hooks up to the back of your PCIe or what have you. So I was able to knock that out. I got that for free from the state. Luckily, they were still running a program back then for upskilling
Nice.
people. And then 2 months later, I got my Sec Plus. And then December of that year, I was like, I had saved a bunch of money. I had some money. And I was just like, I'm going to leave this job because of other factors. But,
Yeah.
not to be negative, I just took enough of what I needed to move on to the next thing. And for
Okay.
me, that was to go on a sprint to get like a bunch of more certifications, which I could bore you with. It's kind of covers the gamut because I was just trying to solidify myself as an IT guy first. Even though I already had my cybersecurity degree, again, I wanted to come back and say, hey, I at least know how to do all this stuff, and whether it's networking, virtualization, or what have you. But the biggest thing I think, aside from your course, after Sec Plus, was getting my CYSA Plus,
Okay.
because that's like a big DoD requirement. And to me, if not to give advice, but this is just for people to hear on their own and make a decision. I think if you're gonna choose between paying between the Sec Plus and the CYSA, I would say just go CYSA.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's just a little bit more hands on, and it's a little bit higher level too. So
It covers more for DoD too, doesn't it? Like a bit more like IAT level, like 2 or something. I can't
Yeah, I think
remember.
it's two. So if you're coming into a SOC role, you're gonna be like on par with a lot of your peers, and a lot of times too is what they'll do is like Sec Plus is the minimum for the role, and it's usually pending like, hey, in 6 months you need your CYSA. So if you're gonna spend like time, time and money, I think you're better off hedging your bet with CYSA Plus. My
That's good
opinion.
advice. That's, I mean,
Yeah.
that I appreciate that advice, because if when people ask me like which one to get, like I don't actually like know what to
Yeah,
tell them.
and then for the people that are already DoD affiliated, there's ways that they can get their Sec Plus, or whether it's through their yearly tuition assistance, or there's a lot of programs out there for military people. Like, hey, here's your free Sec Plus, and they kind of throw stuff at you. Whereas, the whole audience is obviously not going to be military affiliated, but like I said, CYSA to me makes more sense in the long run.
Gotcha. That's good to know. I'll like file that away in my brain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it
And
costs money, so it's like to have that. I don't think it's like $400 just for the
yeah,
exam,
yeah.
and then if you do the Learn Master Pro and all that, it's like $1,000, something crazy. So
Damn. Yeah, that's a lot. That's like you don't want to fail those either.
yeah, and that's not even with the plus one. I think that's just a one time try. So
Gotcha. And like for the people watching, I know I'm always like interviewing people who like go through my course and stuff, but I don't want to be like they see what they got a job from. Like you literally are doing like a lot of stuff like before you
oh yeah,
even mess with me. So I want people to realize that fact that like execution is pretty much king. Like you did a bunch of stuff, and like we don't know exactly like which one was most important or whatever, but you
yeah.
did get like a lot of foundational knowledge. You did a lot of stuff like on your own. So I just want people to like acknowledge that fact.
Yeah, thanks. I had that on my mind too. I wrote it down because I don't want people to put you or even myself in that category of, well, I did this and it didn't work. It's kind of like doing martial arts and you're like, I did the move and he stopped me, and I got punched in the mouth. So they don't see like the hours of repetitions, like you mentioned in your training, that, hey, you know, this skill comes from doing all the boring stuff, like when everyone else is at home watching Netflix. Like I was literally at home just grinding, like to the point of just like I don't even want to touch a computer, And then an hour later, I'd be on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there is a lot of groundwork. But I want to emphasize too that having this, I felt again, it just goes back to personal choices that I felt like I never wanted to get fraud checked or have somebody ask me like, oh, why'd that guy get hired? I'm like, well, I have a secret clearance. I got a degree. I got 2 of them. I did all this foundational stuff, and I also did this. Versus like, I just did this one thing. I'm just praying for this Hail Mary. Not to say it's not a really good thing to have on your portfolio, but there is stuff that you have to do. I guess it's kind of like putting on a play or something. Like you got to do all the lighting. You got to do the screenplay. You got to make sure that like the venue's legit.
Yes.
Because you never want to get asked something basic and then like you don't know. It's just like, oh, I guess that rules this candidate out of the pool. So
Yeah, I seen this happen before. When I was on the panel interviewing people, like we asked about the CIA triad. It's that basics, those basic cybersecurity stuff. But the person was like a lawyer dealing with like risk or something, but they couldn't answer the question, and I was like really confused by that. So I know what you're saying. Like I don't want to be
yeah.
like in those position either.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too is that like IT and cyber can really humble you, and you find out quick. Like I feel like there's a couple of different personalities. You have people that are like not confident enough in their skill, and sometimes they end up staying at a position like way too long. And then you have people that are more fluff, but they're really good at talking.
Yeah,
Not to say they don't have any skill, but then you have like the unicorn who can like that has the skill and the ability to communicate like in most mediums or every medium.
yeah,
But like I want to be that person, and I don't want to be like in management. I just want to be highly skilled. But in order to do that, like you said, you have to be able to do all those basics. And I feel like at least lately, this is my opinion, okay, that you kind of get people moving in from different fields, and I guess thinking that their prior high position kind of gives them more standing, where it's like you still got to start at the beginning though. Like it's almost like the personalities, the person like communication skills still count, but your prior stature to me doesn't, unless you're gonna humble yourself and do, ABC 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, yeah. This makes sense.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, nobody. Again, the biggest thing is to get fraud checked, man. I just like it's like getting beat up. Like that's the only thing I can imagine. Like, and then everyone knows. They're just like, oh, damn, I'm not gonna. I'll never, financially recover from this, and kind of just keep your head down from then on.
Yeah, I think you're like way past the potential of getting fraud checked. If something comes up, just be like, "Oh, I didn't know that," but I think
Yeah.
too much foundation.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, it was funny because one of the guys I work with, he's prior military. He's got a higher level role, I would say. But I was just chatting with him one day, and I showed him my GitHub, and I was like, "Oh, this is like my first victim." So I was like, "Hey, yeah," I was talking about like threat hunting and this and that stuff that I learned from your course, and I could tell that he was like really surprised, like. I didn't know that he knew this stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was kind of like, well, I mean, that's a good surprise for me is that that I was able to do something like that and kind of maybe change his perception of me.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah,
that's cool. And but the job that you have now, you got that like a while ago, right? It's not like a recent one. Okay.
No, that was that process started July of last year, and then I was hired the first week of September.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've been there like 7 months now.
Gotcha. Okay, nice. And then you just joined the Cyber just for fun, then basically.
Yeah, I joined up again because like, man, you're really convincing, dude. So I was like, every time I try to leave, they pull me back in. So I was like, let's see what Josh is cooking up. Because I didn't know that you were doing something else. And because, I still subscribe to your channel, still watch the videos, still get a lot of value out of that stuff. And, going back to the interview process, I actually reviewed your interview questions, and I was like, oh, thank God, because like that helped me immensely as well. It wasn't, like you said, it wasn't just that one thing. It was like the whole package deal, as far as like putting together your resume, being able to talk about basic things, and then also doing the interview process with myself in my car, on the way there.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I've been there 7 months, and I've gone through the regular training, and then there's a little bit of a organizational shift going on right now. So I've had to be pretty flexible, which I have no problem doing, with my military experience. Pretty resilient. So that is one thing I want to expound upon with the listeners is that IT is like chaos. Like you're literally walking into a tornado sometimes, and there could be a cow flying by you, and that's considered normal. So you just have to kind of roll with the punches. But yeah, it's going good so far.
When you say this, it kind of reminds me of something. A lot of people, they don't know what to expect when they start working, and they'll complain about like lack of training and like all this stuff about like being set up to fail or something. But almost like every like IT and cyber job is like kind of like that.
It is. I learned that too the hard way, and I really want to give credit to people too that like I feel in every organization that you're in, no matter what job you're in, there's like a couple people that are just holding the whole thing together. They're like they're like the glue guys. Like if they leave, it's kind of like in networking where that's the main router. If that router leaves or decides not to work that day, like this whole thing's gonna fall apart. So I try to build relationships with those people because I feel like I can recognize that even if. No matter, regardless of who else does or doesn't recognize that, I try to build relationships with those specific people just to like, hey, dude, like if you weren't here today, I would have been lost, which is true, most of the time. But yeah, it is pure chaos. So don't expect just to like walk into the office and like, I'm just going to do my alerts and then everything's going to go great. You're like, no, the front gate could be closed. There could be a traffic accident on the way. You get a flat tire. You could be locked out of the building. Your password cannot work. Like, infrastructure is down. And, you have to do this report in like 10 minutes. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. And can I ask about kind of two separate things, like one related to like the cyber range of my course and then one without it? Like if somebody's thinking about going through the cyber range or, the HoneyNet course, what would you recommend them to pay special attention to? Like, what helped you a lot in those?
Well, I had previous experience using Microsoft Exchange, so I was already familiar with a lot of the language. So when you get into anything, you need to learn like the terminology and what people are actually talking about. So one thing that helped me was listening to a lot of your YouTube videos on my way to work or on my way back or wherever I was going. And I would say dedicate yourself to immersion, whether it's like learning a language, learning a martial art, a programming language, like whatever it is, you need to like live that like daily. It's not just something that, oh, I'll get it. Oh yeah, it'll come to me. Like, no, you can't like put this under your pillow and absorb, all this information. It needs to be something that you're real comfortable with and that you can describe in a very basic way. But I would say, yeah, learning that stuff will help you build confidence in what you're learning about, and it'll allow you to discuss it intelligently to other people that may be potential employers, or they may know somebody who's looking for somebody that knows what you're talking about. That, and also do it for the right reasons. Like I said, now I feel like people are more kind of looking for like a get rich quick type of career field, which, not to discourage anyone from doing IT and cyber, but if like knowing all that it's a lot of chaos involved and it can be stressful at times depending on what specific field you're in, just know that at least somebody told you. So at the very least, basically just know what you're talking about. Make yourself reputable in that way.
Cool. That's some really great advice, especially like the immersion thing, because people like really underestimate how useful that is. Because I use that for a lot of stuff, and it makes you get good like really fast. Well, faster.
Yeah, it's back to your point too. Like, it's about repetitions. So the best way to get good at something is just to get really bored with it to the point where you're like, yeah, And one thing it's funny because I was on the community board recently, and I'll catch you doing this sometimes where like you will do like 3 steps in like 10 seconds or maybe like 5, and I'm like, oh, crap, I need to pause it because I'm like, oh, okay, he said this thing, so I need to press on that tab. But it's because you've done it so much that you're able to kind of cruise on the freeway, versus like there's times where I'm trying to shift like into second gear, So, but that only comes with those repetitions, and it's not something that someone else can do for you. So, but again, going back to like humbling yourself and putting the work in, there's no replacement for like that experience that your course provides, is the opportunity to get those repetitions in, and have other people to talk to about it, versus kind of like, it could be like a tumbleweed out there in the YouTube world, and you're just floating around and you see the next shiny object, where your course really gives you one big project to do, but it gives you a lot of stuff that is covered within that project, versus like, this other content creator, he's got a really good lab on this one thing, but he doesn't explain anything, and there's no support, it's on an older version, there's no community aspect. So I would say that your project specifically, it provides all those things. It's the opportunity to build connections. You have a proven reputation, and there's people there that are doing the exact same thing. So that's what I want to say sets your course apart from the others.
Well, thanks for acknowledging that. I tried to make it like that, where it's like one big thing with like a lot of disciplines inside, and if you just do that big thing many times, it will kind of like make you good in a lot of areas. That's what I had in mind when I made it. I just want people to do it many times, so they get those reps in.
Yeah. I think we like a gym, but I do like that it's called the school, the platform at least. I feel like that's the same way I approach anything, is like an educational adventure, versus just, I'm just going to go to this boot camp, I'll get my stamp and I get my 6-figure job, and then I'm going to ride around in a fancy car and flick off my ashes on the freeway to the next person behind me. But it's just about being a student, really, and students got to show up to class and they got to do the work. So
yeah, and you're proving it. You did the stuff, and then you got results, and then
man, it was a lot of stuff. But I will say too that it could probably be easier for some people to get a job and all that, and especially if you have a specific thing that you want to really get good at. you don't have to like, if you were to look at my LinkedIn, you'd probably be like, oh, why this guy bother to learn like virtualization, or why did he get his Cisco CCST network, or what have you. But you can focus in, and I think like again, your course allows people to pick this platform to get really good at, and then everything else they could probably learn at work. But at the very least, I would say A+, and then your course. I mean, that's a really valid person to hire, in my opinion, especially if they've done all the reps.
Oh, shoot. Well, thanks.
Yep.
And then you kind of answered this question already, but I was gonna ask. For anyone watching who's interested in, changing their career and getting into cyber, like what advice, like not related to like me or anything, like what advice would you give them?
If they're thinking about it, I'd say first talk to people that are already in it. And keep in mind the personalities are going to vary. You have your network guys who are like their own type of creature. Then you have like guys that do like data stuff. So cyber and IT is like a vast ocean with many different type of fish, and a couple of mermaids. So talk to a lot of people and get an idea of what specifically you want to do, and also like what kind of lifestyle that involves. Because if it's something where you have a family and you're at a position where you're part of critical infrastructure and you're on call, like obviously that's not going to work. So kind of look at people that have those types of videos on YouTube perhaps, and see like if that fits what you're looking for. And if you can handle that long term. Other times people just want to, I want to get a remote job. Like, well, it's not 2020 anymore. So you might get hybrid now, but that's going to take a lot of work. And also I would say, do not go and spend a lot of money right off the bat thinking that purchase is going to validate you. And this one thing is just going to make you like this guru. It takes a lot of pieces to the puzzle to make that picture of you, and to give employers that picture of you when you have that interview. Because I don't think there's ever been anyone who's just like, oh, I just did this one thing and like that's why I'm hireable. Like it doesn't work that way. If you have to start at the beginning, you start at the beginning. If you're able to shift from, maybe you're like a software developer or somebody that's dealt with big data, like your journey is going to be a lot different than somebody who has like completely unrelated technical skills. But I will say that most people nowadays have operating system abilities with their phone, their computers, and the big thing is people skills. Because, going back to what we spoke to earlier, you have those people that are not confident in themselves, and it shows. But if you're willing to learn, I think that's going to give you like a really good opportunity in whatever you decide to pursue. Because I feel like over the last couple of years, people have kind of lost, the art and science of being like a good person. So when you meet somebody who's like legit, you're like, oh man, I think I want to be their friend. Like, oh wait, hold on, I'm interviewing them. So, if you can kind of like show that you're genuine and that you want to learn and you can learn, that goes a long way too. And also, even when you get hired, like it's not like, oh, yeah, that's all you ever need to know. It's like you said, there's mass chaos, and it's like, you have to learn this right now. So, think about that if you're going to get into cybersecurity. But, yeah, definitely I would say it's worth a shot, and I feel like it's one of the most egalitarian fields out there. I talk to everyone about this. Like, I even told my masseuse about your course. Oh. Yeah, because she was in the same boat. She was like, oh, I was going to go to this IT school, but it cost a couple $1,000. I was like, hold on, like, go look at these links, and like, I know there is cost involved, but you'll be able to decide if this is something that you like or not, of course with the added incentive of the community and stuff like that. So I wanted to give her a realistic view of I'm not a gatekeeper, I'm not out here like, oh, I'm the only guy that can get into cyber, like, no one's coming after me, and you're going to bury me with my truck in my house, and no one's getting nothing. It's kind of like, dude, I wish I knew more people out here to be like, hey, man, I can like probably get you in, but you got to do ABC, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I would just say talk to people and kind of nerd out a little bit on YouTube and see like what people are talking about, what kind of personalities. I mean, everyone's in cyber. There's no one out there who's like just blatant haters that I've seen. It's just everyone's like, oh, yeah, you used to do this. That's cool. You were a police officer. You were a truck driver. Cool. Welcome. So that's how I look at it.
Well, cool. Yeah, thanks very much. That's going to help a lot of people. It gives them a nice good realistic picture and like a visual roadmap, I think. So yeah, thank you for all that.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Yeah, we'll see you in the community, I guess.
Yeah, I'll be there lurking.
Thanks so much.